For years after our marriage, my husband forbade me from visiting his mother's house in his hometown, claiming it was under renovation. One day I received shocking news. My mother-in-law had passed away a month ago. When my husband left town for work, I secretly traveled there to see her old house. But the moment I opened the door, I froze. My body trembled. I couldn't breathe when I realized the truth. Before we get into the story, don't forget to say hi in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And make sure to hit the subscribe button on the Stories with Meaning channel so you won't miss our next powerful story. It had been 8 years since Elena married Marcus. 8 years that, on the surface, seemed perfectly fine. They lived in a comfortable home on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. Marcus worked as a regional manager for a logistics company, providing financial stability. Elena, a soft-spoken woman who always wore her shawl neatly, chose to focus on managing their home after marriage. Their life looked like the dream many people wished for, but behind that harmonious facade, there was one quiet burden weighing heavily on Elena's heart, one door she was never allowed to open. That door was the house of Helena, Marcus's mother, located in a small rural town outside Boise, Idaho. In 8 years of marriage, Elena had only met her mother-in-law 3 times, twice at the beginning of the marriage when Helena visited the city, and once during their first year when they went back to the countryside. Elena remembered Helena as a quiet woman with calm, gentle eyes. She didn't talk much, but the way her hand rested warmly on Elena's back felt sincere. Elena longed to know her better, the woman who gave birth to the man she loved, but for the past 7 years, that door had been firmly shut. Every time Elena suggested visiting, Marcus gave the same answer. "The house is undergoing major renovations, honey. Let's wait until it's done." At first, Elena understood. Marcus explained that the house left by his late father was old, rotting wooden beams, a badly leaking roof, and a foundation that needed serious reinforcement. As an only child, Marcus felt fully responsible. He said, "I want my mom to live comfortably in her old age." Elena felt proud to have such a devoted husband. The first year, it made sense. By the second year, Elena began to wonder, what kind of renovation takes that long? There were structural issues with the land, honey. Some parts had to be redone. The contractors are unreliable. His slightly irritated tone made Elena reluctant to ask further. By the third, fourth, and fifth years, the renovation became a bitter joke in Elena's heart. Every Thanksgiving and Christmas, Elena prepared the best gift packages for Helena, but Marcus always delivered them alone. "I'll check on the contractors while I'm there," he'd say, gently. "The drive is long, you'll be uncomfortable. It's dusty, bad for your breathing." Elena, naturally compliant, would nod and send her love. Eventually, she stopped asking, not because she didn't care, but because every question hit the same solid wall. A wall called renovation. Marcus was still a good husband, attentive, always checked in, never failed to provide. But when it came to Helena and the house back in Idaho, he became someone else, closed off, defensive. Elena tried calling Helena directly. At first, the calls were answered. Helena's voice sounded weak. When Elena asked about visiting, Helena would whisper, "Ask Marcus, dear. I'll follow whatever he decides." But for the past 2 years, the number had been inactive. "Her phone broke, honey. She's old. Technology confuses her. Besides, reception out there is terrible." Logical, yet unsettling. The unease reached its peak 3 months ago. It was the height of summer, dry season. The city air was dusty and hot. Marcus had just returned from another trip, claiming he needed to settle delayed contractor payments. He arrived late at night, exhausted. As Elena helped remove his expensive leather dress shoes near the door, she froze. The shoes were covered in thick, wet red mud. Not dust, mud, fresh and sticky, as if he'd walked through farmland right after heavy rain. "Marcus, where did your shoes get so muddy?" Elena asked softly, careful with her tone. Marcus froze. His tired face tightened. He glanced at the shoes, then quickly looked away. "Oh, that. I stopped by a friend's construction site near the road. Work stuff," he replied too quickly to note that something was off about his answer. "But it's dry season," Elena said carefully. Where would wet mud come from? She wasn't accusing him. She was genuinely confused. That was the first time Marcus ever snapped at her. "You're being paranoid," he barked. "I've been working all day and now you're interrogating me over shoes? What do you think I'm lying about? I went to the countryside for my mother. You think I enjoy traveling back and forth? Show some appreciation." Elena was stunned. Her eyes burned. With trembling hands, she placed the shoes down. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean—" "Enough," Marcus cut her off and walked into the bathroom. That night, Elena slept with her back to him, silent tears soaking her pillow. It wasn't the shouting that hurt the most. It was the lie, so obvious in his voice. Marcus was hiding something big, something tied to the countryside, to Helena, and to the endless renovation that stood between Elena and the truth. That night, Elena realized their marriage wasn't as solid as she thought. There was a crack she had ignored for years, and it all led back to that house. Life returned to a forced normalcy. After the muddy shoes incident, Marcus became excessively affectionate. He bought Elena new dresses, took her to expensive restaurants, showered her with compliments. Elena accepted all of it with a faint smile, not because she forgave him, but because she was too tired to fight. She watched him quietly now, with new caution. That Saturday morning, Elena was in the kitchen arranging a freshly made layered cake on a plate. Marcus sat on the porch reading the newspaper. A car horn broke the calm. Elena looked out the window. A sleek black sedan had stopped in front of their gate. It wasn't familiar. A sharply dressed man stepped out, wearing an expensive gray suit and carrying a leather briefcase. He hesitated, checked his phone for the address, then rang the doorbell. Elena adjusted her shawl and walked towards the front door, crossing paths with Marcus, who had already stood up, frowning. "Can I help you?" Marcus asked politely, though his tone was guarded. The man smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Good morning. Is this the residence of Mr. Marcus?" "Yes, that's me." "My name is Thomas Reed. I'm with Reed and Holloway Legal Associates. I need to discuss something important regarding—" He paused, glancing at Elena standing behind Marcus. "Regarding Mrs. Helena." Elena's heart clenched. A lawyer, her mother-in-law's name. This couldn't be good. Marcus's face drained of color. The calm mask he always wore collapsed instantly. "My mother? What happened to my mother?" he asked, his voice shaking. Thomas Reed, the lawyer, looked at Marcus with an expression that was difficult to read. "Perhaps it would be better if we spoke inside," he said calmly. "This concerns something very personal." With stiff movements, Marcus stepped aside and invited him in. Elena followed behind them. Her fingers felt cold, numb. They sat in the living room. Elena hurried to the kitchen to prepare drinks. Her hands trembled slightly as she poured water into the glasses. When she returned, she heard Thomas Reed begin to speak. "Mr. Marcus, Mrs. Elena," he said in a measured, professional tone, "I am here acting as the legal representative appointed by the late Mrs. Helena." Elena nearly dropped the tray. The glasses clinked loudly, the sharp sound echoing through the sudden silence. "The late?" Elena repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. She turned to Marcus, searching his face for an explanation. But Marcus sat frozen, staring blankly at the table in front of him. Thomas Reed let out a slow breath. "I offer my deepest condolences for your loss. Mrs. Helena passed away 32 days ago." 32 days. More than a month. Elena felt a ringing in her ears. The room seemed to tilt, spin. Her mother-in-law had been gone for over a month, and she had known nothing. Yes, the daughter-in-law had never been told that her mother-in-law had died. This can't be true," Marcus muttered. His voice sounded hollow, empty. "She passed away at the rural medical center due to acute kidney failure," Thomas Reed continued. "According to the written instructions she left with me, I was asked to contact you, specifically you, Mr. Marcus, as her sole heir, exactly 30 days after her passing to address matters of inheritance." His tone was flat, as if he were delivering a weather report. Elena couldn't breathe. She looked at Marcus now with anger rising beneath the shock. Marcus knew. There was no way a son wouldn't know his own mother had died. The long drought, the muddy shoes, his pale face when the lawyer mentioned Helena's name. Everything connected. Suddenly, Marcus covered his face with both hands. His shoulders shook. "Mom!" he sobbed. Elena stared at him coldly. A very convincing performance. But she no longer believed it. She had already seen through his lies. Thomas Reed looked uncomfortable witnessing the scene. He cleared his throat, opened his briefcase, and took out a large brown envelope along with a set of keys. "Mr. Marcus," he said gently. Marcus lifted his head. His eyes were red. "According to the officially validated will Mrs. Helena left behind, all assets under her name, including the house and land in Idaho, are now legally yours." He slid the envelope and the keys across the table toward Marcus. "These are the ownership documents already transferred into your name, and this," he pointed to the keys, "is the key to the house." The keys looked old. One large, intricately notched key and a smaller padlock key hanging from a simple metal ring. Keys to every secret. After Thomas Reed left, taking the suffocating silence with him, Elena finally spoke. Her voice was flat, cold, nothing like her usual self. 1 month, Marcus. Marcus flinched, his gaze still fixed on the keys. "Your mother died a month ago, and you didn't tell me." It wasn't a question. It was a statement, a brutal fact. Marcus looked up. The sadness in his eyes was now mixed with panic. "Elena, I can explain. I was destroyed. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want you to be sad too." "You lied." Elena cut him off. "You went to Idaho 3 months ago. Your shoes were covered with wet mud. Not to check on renovations, were they? Your mother was sick, right?" Marcus looked startled that she had connected the dots. "Yes, she was sick. I took her to the hospital. I didn't want you to worry." "Then why didn't you tell me she died?" Elena demanded. Her voice trembled now, holding back tears and fury. "I'm your wife. I was her daughter-in-law. I couldn't even pray for her on the day she was buried." "That's exactly why." Marcus suddenly stood up, his voice rising. "I didn't want you to see her like that. The house was still a mess. The renovations weren't finished. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see my mother die in a broken house." That excuse again. Renovation. Even in the middle of death, Marcus clung to the same reason. An excuse that now sounded painfully fake and pathetic. Marcus grabbed the envelope and the keys from the table. "I need time, Elena. Please understand. I'll take care of everything. After that, we'll go there together. I promise." He walked into his home office. Elena heard a soft click as Marcus locked the desk drawer, locking away the keys, locking away the truth. Elena sank on the sofa. She was alone now, trapped in a strange kind of grief. She mourned Helena, the woman she never truly got to know, but she mourned her marriage even more. That day, Elena realized her husband was a stranger, and whatever the truth was, it was sealed inside a house in Idaho, a house that was supposedly on renovation. 4 days after the lawyer's visit became the longest 4 days of Elena's marriage, the silence in their home grew dense, so thick it felt like it could be cut with a knife. Marcus, after his theatrical emotional outburst that day, now behaved like a grieving husband. He spoke little. He stared blankly at a television that wasn't even turned on. He sighed heavily when he thought Elena wasn't watching. But Elena saw everything. And what she saw was a bad performance. There was no genuine sorrow in Marcus's eyes, only anxiety, fear that his mask would slip. Elena, on the other hand, had changed. Something inside her had broken, but something else had hardened. Her former softness was now coated in a thin layer of steel. She continued serving Marcus as usual, preparing his morning coffee, cooking dinner, washing his clothes, but she did it with robotic efficiency. No small talk, no warm smiles. Elena had become an observer in her own home, studying her husband's every move, waiting. The opportunity came on the 5th day. At breakfast, Marcus cleared his throat and placed his spoon down with deliberate care. "Elena," he began, forcing his voice to sound heavy. She lifted her gaze from her plate, looking at him with an empty stare. "There's a sudden work matter," Marcus continued, avoiding eye contact. "A project out of state. It might take a week, maybe 10 days. I have to leave tomorrow morning." The timing was too perfect. Elena felt a faint pulse at her temple. Her husband had just been exposed for hiding his mother's death, and now he had to leave town. "Oh," was all Elena said. Her voice was ice cold. Marcus looked slightly unsettled by her lack of reaction. Perhaps he had expected her to cry or beg him not to leave during a time of mourning. "I tried to refuse," he added quickly, "but my supervisor wouldn't allow it. It's a major project. You'll be okay if I leave, right?" There was hope in his question. Hope that Elena would be fine so he could leave without obstacles. "I'll be fine," Elena replied. "Go, finish your work." Marcus visibly relaxed. Too relaxed. "All right, sweetheart. Thank you for understanding. I'll call every day. I promise." Elena gave a small nod and returned to her breakfast, which tasted like wet paper. For the rest of the day, she watched Marcus pack. He seemed excited, not like a man heading into a stressful business trip, certainly not like a man who had just lost his mother. He neatly folded his shirts, humming softly to himself. Elena caught him smiling at his phone several times. That smile froze her blood. That night, Marcus went to bed early, saying he needed proper rest for his morning flight. Elena couldn't sleep. She lay stiff beside him, listening to his steady breathing. The man sharing her bed for 8 years was a stranger. His lies were thick, structured, carefully built. Elena no longer felt sadness. What she felt was cold, burning anger at their unjust fate and at Marcus himself. At dawn, Marcus's alarm rang. He moved quickly in the dim morning light, showering, dressing, grabbing his work bag. He leaned down to kiss Elena's forehead. Elena pretended to be half asleep. Marcus's lips felt cold against her skin. "I'm leaving," he whispered. "Yes, take care of the house," Elena murmured softly. She heard him drag his suitcase. The front door opened, then closed. The car engine started, then slowly faded away into the distance. Elena opened her eyes wide in the dark room. She didn't wait even a minute. She got out of bed. Her heart was pounding, not from fear, but from anticipation. This was it. Her destination was clear. Marcus's home office. That room was forbidden territory for Elena, not because Marcus had explicitly banned her, but because he always made sure it was locked whenever he wasn't inside. But Elena knew something. After the muddy shoes incident, Marcus had become careless. She pressed the handle of the office door. Locked, of course. But Elena had expected that. Marcus probably took the main key with him, but where did he keep the spare? She thought hard. Marcus was organized, but also arrogant. He wouldn't hide it somewhere complicated because he never imagined Elena would dare to look for it. Then she remembered something. She hurried to the laundry room. A pile of Marcus's dirty work pants from the past week sat untouched. She checked the pocket of the gray trousers he had worn 2 days ago. Empty. The beige ones? Empty. Then the black pair. Her fingers touched something hard and cold inside the small pocket. She pulled it out. A small silver key, a drawer key. Elena's breath caught. She returned to the office door. She didn't have the key to the room itself, but the drawer Marcus had locked in a hurry on the day the lawyer came. Wait. Elena paused. She stared at the door. She didn't actually need to enter the office. The house key from Idaho was inside the drawer, but the drawer was inside the office. Her plan collapsed. She sank down in front of the door, frustrated. She spun the small drawer key between her fingers. Stupid, she scolded herself silently. Of course Marcus had locked the door. Then her eyes shifted to the key rack near the front entrance, where they usually hung the house keys, the car keys. There it was, a spare key set for the entire house, keys Marcus believed Elena would never touch. Elena took the spare key to the office. Her hands shook violently. This felt like a serious violation. She slid the key into the lock, turned it. Click. The sound was painfully loud in the silent house. The door opened. The room smelled like her husband, a mix of expensive cologne and paper. Everything was neatly arranged. A large wooden desk, bookshelves packed with files, a sturdy leather chair. Elena walked straight to the desk. 3 drawers on the right side. She tried the top one. Locked. She inserted the small silver key. Perfect fit. The drawer opened without a sound. Her eyes immediately locked onto it. Resting on top of a stack of documents was a familiar set of old keys. The keys Thomas Reed had handed over. The keys to Helena's house. Elena picked them up. They felt cold, heavy. She was about to close the drawer when she noticed something else. A thick blue folder beneath the keys. The label was neatly written. Rural Renovation Project. Elena's heart pounded faster. With trembling hands, she opened the folder. Inside were no architectural drawings, no construction plans. Instead, dozens, maybe hundreds, receipts, building material receipts. She read them one by one. Cement, 100 bags, sand, 5 truckloads, steel framing, 50 bars. All purchased from the same hardware store in the city, not near the village. And the dates. The dates were too perfect, always at the end of every month. For the past 7 years, everything looked too clean, too fabricated. This was a financial report of her husband's lies. Then she found it. Tucked between cement and paint receipts, a small folded piece of paper. It looked worn, handled many times. Not a receipt, a torn page from a notebook. Elena opened it. Handwriting. Not Marcus's stiff, tidy handwriting. This was slanted, broken, rushed. A woman's handwriting. There was only one short sentence. The medication ran out again. It's not her who needs it, it's him. Elena crushed the paper in her hand. Medication? Who was him? Who wrote this? This wasn't about renovations. This wasn't about a sick mother. The muddy shoes, the fake receipts, the sudden business trips, the mysterious note. Marcus's lies were far darker, far deeper than she had ever imagined. Elena took the house keys from Idaho and slipped them into her pocket. She put the folder and the drawer key back exactly where they were, locked the drawer, left the office, locked the door, returned the spare key to its place. No trace left behind. Elena stood in the living room as morning light slowly filled the space. Her hand clenched the keys in her pocket. Her fear was gone. All that remained was burning resolve. Marcus gave her a week. That was more than enough. She would go to Idaho. She would open that door. She would find out who him was, the one who needed medication, and she would uncover the truth, no matter how ugly it was. Elena gave herself exactly 1 hour to prepare. She couldn't risk Marcus calling and hearing panic in her voice. Everything had to look normal. She showered, performed her dawn prayer with forced devotion, her mind fixed on the keys in her pocket. Then she packed. No suitcase. A suitcase would attract attention. She took her old backpack, the one she usually used for study groups. She packed 2 long dresses, matching shawls, underwear, and her prayer garment. She also packed all the cash she had, both from her wallet and her hidden drawer. She wouldn't use cards. Card transactions could be traced. She picked up her phone, then froze. Marcus would call. What should she do? She turned it off, then reconsidered. No, that would be suspicious. He'd panic. He might come home early. She turned it back on. Silent mode. If Marcus called, she'd let it ring. Later, she'd send a short text. In the shower, still asleep. That would be enough. She ordered a rideshare to the interstate bus terminal, not the train station. Train stations were too formal, too many cameras. Bus terminals were organized chaos, the perfect place to disappear. The ride felt like a dream. Elena sat in the back seat, watching the city wake up. People rushing to work, living their normal lives, while she felt like she was stepping out of her own, like a fugitive, even though she was just a wife searching for the truth. At the terminal, she bought an economy bus ticket to a city near Marcus's hometown, not directly to the village. She didn't want a clear travel record. She paid in cash. The bus was overcrowded, the air thick with mixed smells. Elena didn't care. She got a window seat. As the bus pulled away from the noisy terminal, an odd sense of relief washed over her. For the first time, she felt free. Free from a house full of lies, free from Marcus's control. The journey took 5 hours. 5 hours of staring out the window as the landscape changed. Tall buildings gave way to wide green fields. Hot city air turned into cooler country breeze. Elena pieced the puzzle together in her mind. What would she find? Marcus said the house was ruined, a total renovation. But the receipts were fake. The note mentioned medication. Marcus claimed Helena died at a rural hospital from kidney failure. Was that a lie too? Did Helena die at home? Who was him? Was it Helena? And who was the woman who wrote the note? She remembered Marcus's description of his hometown: remote, bad roads, far from everything. The bus stopped at the county terminal. Elena got off and asked a motorcycle taxi driver where she could find transport to Marcus's village. The driver looked at her. Oh, Meadow Ridge Village. That's easy. Just take the blue local shuttle across the street. Meadow Ridge Village. So that was the real name. And it wasn't hard to reach at all. Not remote, Elena thought. She boarded a rural minibus packed with middle-aged women returning from the market. The 1-hour journey continued along smooth, well-paved roads, nothing like the terrible conditions Marcus had described. Elena sat silently, her heart pounding harder with every passing minute as the vehicle drew closer to its destination. "The house of the late Mrs. Helena?" Elena asked softly to a woman sitting beside her. The woman, busy arranging her vegetable basket, turned to her. Her face was friendly, but her eyes softened with pity. "Oh, how sad. Who are you to her, miss? She passed away more than a month ago." "I'm a distant relative," Elena lied. She couldn't bring herself to admit she was the daughter-in-law. She was ashamed they would know she hadn't attended the funeral. "Oh, just go straight ahead. Get off at the intersection near the Meadow Ridge Village Community Hall. From there, walk a bit and turn into the alley beside the grocery store. Her house is the last one. White paint. Beautiful garden," the woman explained at length. Elena froze for a moment. "A beautiful garden? White paint? Thank you, ma'am." She got off exactly where instructed. The rural air felt clean, peaceful, nothing like the remote, run-down place Marcus had painted in her mind. She followed the directions on foot. The alley beside the store was neat, paved with interlocking bricks. Houses on both sides looked tidy and well cared for. When she reached the end of the alley, she stopped walking. Her feet felt glued to the ground. This wasn't a house under renovation. This wasn't a ruined house. The house before her was beautiful, far more beautiful than the one she shared with Marcus in Portland, Oregon. It was semi-modern yet warm. The walls were painted ivory white, spotless. Large windows framed with polished teak wood gleamed in the sunlight. And in front, There was the garden, perfectly maintained. Thick green grass like a carpet, roses, orchids, jasmine blooming everywhere. No signs of construction, no dust, no piles of sand, no workers. Elena felt nausea rise in her throat. The lie Marcus had told her for 7 years. Everything collapsed in front of her eyes. Marcus hadn't lied to hide a broken house. He had lied to hide this perfect one. Why? Why wasn't Elena allowed to see this house? Why go through the trouble of creating fake renovation receipts? What was all that renovation money for when the house was already this flawless? Her hands trembled. This was far more terrifying than finding ruins. Ruins would mean Marcus had failed. But this meant Marcus had succeeded. He had successfully hidden something enormous, something meticulously preserved behind this pristine white facade. With violently shaking hands, Elena reached into her pocket and felt the cold metal of the key. She stepped forward and opened the small gate. It wasn't locked. She stood before the solid front door. Her heart hammered so loudly she feared the door might shake. She slid the large key into the lock. It turned smoothly. The door was unlocked, yet she couldn't push it open. Her feet felt cemented to the clean front porch. She stared at the beautiful house that should have been her mother-in-law's home, a house she should have visited with joy, now standing as a monument to her husband's lies. What was inside? Why did Marcus fight so hard to protect it? A cold fear crept down her spine. What would she find? A spotless, empty house? Or something far worse? The images of medicine records and muddy shoes flashed through her mind again. "Miss, who are you looking for?" Elena jumped. The voice came from next door. She turned sharply, her heart leaping into her throat. A middle-aged woman about the same age as the late Helena stood behind the hedge separating the two houses. She wore a simple long dress and a batik shawl. Gardening shears were clutched in her hand. Elena swallowed hard, forcing herself to stay calm. She couldn't run. "My husband's house." She studied her curiously, still friendly. "You're looking for Mrs. Helena's house, aren't you? Oh, dear, she passed away about a month ago. Who are you to her?" "A distant relative," Elena said, then stopped herself. The lie wouldn't get her anywhere. She needed answers. "My name is Elena," she said quietly. "I'm Marcus's wife." The woman's jaw dropped. The shears nearly slipped from her hand. "His wife?" Her voice jumped several octaves. "Yes, ma'am. Why?" The woman shook her head in disbelief. "Oh, my God, dear. Astaghfirullah. I'm Susan, Mrs. Susan. I live next door. I'm just so shocked." "Why?" Elena pressed. Her bad feeling grew heavier. Susan stepped closer to the fence, lowering her voice conspiratorially. "Forgive me for saying this, Elena, but everyone here thought Marcus's wife was gravely ill." "Gravely ill?" "Yes, Marcus told us so himself, for years. He said his wife in Portland was very sick, couldn't be exposed to dust, couldn't get tired, couldn't be stressed. That's why she could never come here." Susan spoke innocently. "We all felt so sorry for Marcus. We thought he was such a devoted husband, traveling back and forth between Portland and Meadow Ridge Village, taking care of a sick wife in the city and a sick mother here." Elena closed her eyes. Her head throbbed. So that was the story. Marcus hadn't only used renovation as an excuse for Elena. He had turned Elena into a critically ill woman in the eyes of the villagers. He had painted himself as a suffering hero, trapped between two sick women. "What was Mrs. Helena sick with?" Elena asked hoarsely. Susan's face darkened. That's what we never really knew. She was healthy, still attending prayer gatherings. Then one day, she disappeared. Disappeared? Elena whispered. Yes, locked inside her own house. We weren't allowed to visit. Every time we tried, Marcus was always there. He'd say, "She's resting," or "She's highly contagious, doctor's orders, sterile conditions." Susan sighed bitterly. Then Marcus raised the fence higher. He said it was for security, but to us it felt like a prison. Elena swallowed hard. So Mrs. Helena died from illness? Marcus said kidney failure, but none of us really know. One day there was just a yellow funeral flag. Marcus handled everything very quickly. Only a few of us neighbors prayed over her. He said he didn't want to trouble anyone and that his wife, Elena, was too weak to receive bad news. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. Anger, grief, devastation. She hadn't even been given the chance to pray for her mother-in-law, all because of Marcus's lies. Marcus told me this house was under major renovation, Elena said, gesturing toward the house. Susan let out a short, bitter laugh. Renovation? What renovation? Just look at it. The house was repainted about 5 years ago, beautifully. After that, nothing. Then what? Packages, Susan hesitated. Packages? Elena urged. Almost every week, a big delivery truck came. Expensive furniture, new sofas, wardrobes, beds. Susan paused, uneasy. And the strangest thing was, sometimes the packages contained children's toys, Susan continued quietly. So many of them. Little bicycles, dolls, toy cars. I was confused. Mrs. Helena was already elderly, and Marcus didn't have any children. No grandchildren, right? Susan swallowed. I once asked Marcus about it. He said they were donations for an orphanage, so we believed him. Elena's heart pounded violently. Children's toys, the medical notes. The medicine is finished again. He needs it. And there's more, Susan said hesitantly. Please go on, Elena urged. Susan's voice dropped to a whisper, as if afraid the house itself might hear. Sometimes at night, I heard voices. What kind of voices? Elena asked, her throat tightening. Not Mrs. Helena's. Her voice was soft, gentle. This was another woman's voice, much younger, very clear, sometimes laughing, sometimes arguing softly with Marcus, and sometimes I heard a child's voice. All the blood drained from Elena's face. Dizziness washed over her. I thought I was imagining it, Susan said quickly. But I heard that young woman and those children more than once. Yet every morning the house was silent, only Mrs. Helena locked inside, and Marcus coming and going in his nice car. Elena could no longer speak. A dreadful certainty settled in her bones about what she was about to find inside. Susan looked at Elena with deep pity. Dear Elena, you really didn't know any of this, did you? Elena slowly shook her head. Tears streamed freely now. Oh God, be strong, dear. I don't want to interfere any further. This is your husband's house. You have the greatest right to know what's inside. Susan gestured gently toward the door. Go in. If anything happens, just scream. I'll be in my house. Elena nodded, unable to even whisper thanks. She wiped her tears. Her fear was gone, replaced by a cold, controlled fury and an unshakable resolve. Susan retreated into her house, leaving Elena alone before the door. Elena took a deep breath. She turned the unlocked handle. With one firm push, she opened the door. She opened Pandora's box, hidden by Marcus for 7 years. The door opened silently. The hinges were well oiled. The first thing that hit her was the cold. An unnatural cold, like air conditioning set far too low. Then the smell. an unsettling mixture of expensive jasmine air freshener, faint antiseptic, and something stale, like a room deprived of fresh air for too long. Elena stepped inside and closed the door behind her. The silence was suffocating, swallowing every sound. She stood in the living room, eyes wide. This was not a rural house. This was a design magazine interior. Cream-colored marble floors gleamed beneath her feet. A massive ivory-white leather sofa dominated the space. A giant flat-screen TV was mounted on a wall, paneled with polished wood. Everything looked new, expensive, untouched. This house was more luxurious than their home in Portland, Oregon, far more luxurious. Then her gaze fell on the wall. The wall was covered in framed photographs, dozens of matching silver frames. Elena stepped closer, her heart pounding. They were all photos of Marcus. Marcus smiling in front of the Eiffel Tower. Marcus skiing somewhere that looked like Japan. Marcus holding a golf trophy. Marcus posing beside a luxury sports car she had never seen before. But there wasn't a single photo of Helena. And worse, there wasn't a single photo of Elena. No wedding photos, no trace of her existence. In 8 years of marriage, in the house that was supposedly renovated for his mother, Elena had been completely erased, as if she had never existed. Elena staggered forward, passing the living room into the interior of the house. She passed the dining room, a solid wooden table for 8 people, topped with an empty crystal vase. Then she entered the kitchen. It looked like a showroom kitchen, built-in stove, double-door silver refrigerator, modern oven. Everything gleamed, unused. On the refrigerator door, something caught her eye. A drawing. A drawing made with crayons. 3 figures, a tall figure, clearly a man, a smaller figure beside him with long hair, and the smallest figure between them. They were holding hands under a smiling sun. Above the tall figure's head, written in clumsy but unmistakable black crayon, was one word: Dad. Elena's breath caught painfully in her throat. Dad. Her hand trembled as she touched the paper. This was proof of what Susan had said. There was a child in this house. Elena turned away from the kitchen, her eyes darting. She moved down the hallway. Several doors lined the corridor. The first door was open, a guest room, neat, unused. The second door, a guest bathroom, spotless, smelled faintly of camphor. The third door, at the end of the hallway, the master bedroom. She assumed it had been Helena's room. Elena tried the handle. Locked. Of course it was. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the key set given to her by Thomas Reed from Reed & Holloway, legal associates. Besides the large main key, there was a smaller one. Not a padlock key, an internal door key. Her hands shook violently as she tried to insert it. It took 3 attempts before it finally fit. She turned it. A sickening click echoed in the quiet hallway. Elena inhaled deeply, bracing herself for the worst. She pushed the door open. The smell hit her like a wall. The faint odor she had noticed earlier became overwhelming. Medicine, antiseptic, alcohol, and the heartbreaking stench of illness. The smell of a sick room neglected for too long. Her eyes struggled to adjust to the dimness. Thick velvet curtains blocked out all sunlight. And then she saw it. In the center of the room, on the cold marble floor, stood a hospital bed. Not a comfortable wooden bed, but a faded white hospital bed, complete with metal side rails. The bed was empty. The mattress, still wrapped in plastic, lay bare without sheets. In the corner stood an IV pole, skeletal and lifeless. On the bedside table, empty medicine bottles were scattered, syrups, pills, empty blister packs. A small oxygen tank lay on the floor, its tube detached. This was Helena's prison. This was where Marcus had cared for his mother. This was where Helena spent the last days of her life, locked inside, surrounded by cold luxury and the stench of medicine. A wave of rage and grief crashed over Elena for the woman she had never truly known. "Oh, God, Mother," Elena whispered, tears flowing freely. But that was not the end of the horror. The room was enormous, clearly divided into two sections. One side was the bleak care area. The other, Elena stepped further inside. Her eyes finally adjusted. The wall opposite the hospital bed, the wall that had been Helena's final daily view, was completely different. It wasn't white. It was painted a soft pastel blue. And that wall, Elena staggered backward, her body slamming into the doorframe. Her heart stopped. The wall was covered in photographs, but these were nothing like the ones in the living room. They were photos of Marcus, and he wasn't alone. In every photo, Marcus was holding a woman, a different woman, much younger than Elena. No shawl, long hair flowing freely, a radiant smile. They looked blissfully happy, intimate. And there was a little boy about 4 or 5 years old, a child with Marcus's eyes, Marcus's smile. Elena saw photos of them at the beach, Marcus carrying the boy on his shoulders, birthday parties, Marcus and the woman kissing the child's cheeks, photos of the three of them curled up together on the same white leather sofa in the living room, like a perfect family. Then Elena saw the most nauseating photo of all. The photo was taken in this very room. Marcus, his mistress, their illegitimate child, standing at the foot of the hospital bed. And in the background, on the bed, lay Helena, frail, emaciated, her eyes staring blankly ahead, forced to serve as the backdrop to her son's false happiness. Elena couldn't breathe. She clutched her chest. The air in the room felt toxic. Renovation. Elena finally understood. The renovation Marcus had spoken of was never about repairing a house. It was his lie. Marcus had renovated his entire life. He had built 2 families. Elena, the legal wife in Portland, Oregon, portrayed as fragile, chronically ill, untouchable. And this, his mistress, his secret family, hidden in the countryside outside Boise, Idaho, inside his own mother's house. 7 years of renovation money, fake receipts, luxury furniture, children's toys. All of it was for them. All of it was funded by lies. And Elena. Elena had been the silent witness, a prisoner in her own home, forced to watch her son build a paradise for another woman while she was slowly allowed to die in the very same house. The medicine has run out again. He needs it. That note hadn't been for Elena. It had been written by the other woman, for her child. Elena's trembling became uncontrollable. This wasn't just an affair. This was a crime. An act of cruelty beyond comprehension. Her husband, Marcus, the man who slept beside her every night, the man she had trusted. Elena collapsed. Her back slid down the doorframe until she was sitting on the cold hallway floor. She couldn't cry. She was too shocked. She could only stare into the dark room, into the core of her husband's rot. She didn't know how long she sat there. 10 minutes? An hour? Time had stopped. Her body shook violently, but her mind grew strangely clear. The numbing shock slowly receded, replaced by something else, something cold, heavy, unyielding. Rage. This was no longer about a broken marriage. This was about a crime. This was about unforgivable cruelty. This was about Elena. With stiff movements, Elena stood up. Her legs were weak, but she forced herself upright. She would not faint. She would not run. She had opened this door, and she would walk through it to the end. She re-entered the prison-like room. The smell of medicine and stale air now felt like the smell of death. Her eyes lingered on the empty hospital bed. Elena had died here, alone, while her son lived happily with his fake family. The photos on the wall made her stomach churn. A happy family built on someone else's suffering. Suddenly, overtaken by fury, Elena marched to the wall and began ripping the photos down, one by one. She didn't care if the frame shattered. She tore Marcus's face, the woman's face, the child's face from the wall. She needed evidence. She would not leave empty-handed. As she yanked down a large framed photo of the three of them celebrating a birthday, something caught her eye. The bedside table next to the hospital bed. Its drawers were shut. Elena threw the frame to the floor. Glass shattered everywhere. She didn't care. She walked to the table. The first drawer held sealed bottles of medication, vitamins, mild painkillers, not medication for kidney failure. Another lie. The second drawer contained sterile syringes, cotton, alcohol wipes, medical supplies, clean, unused. Then the third drawer, the bottom one. It was stuffed full. On top was a pile of folded fabric. Elena pulled it out. Adult diapers. She froze. So this was how Marcus had cared for his mother in her final days? Her chest ached. She pushed the diapers aside, and beneath them, she found it. Not jewelry, not money. A thin notebook. A worn school notebook, the kind children used. Elena recognized it instantly. Her hands trembled again, but for a different reason. She opened the first page. It was Elena's handwriting, neat but slightly shaky, the handwriting of an elderly woman. The date? 3 years ago. Today, Marcus said he wants to renovate the house so I'll be comfortable in my old age. Oh God, my son is so devoted. I love him very much. Elena turned the page. 2.5 years ago. The house is finished. It's beautiful, more beautiful than I ever imagined. But it's strange. Marcus built very tall fences and told me I shouldn't go outside often. He said he's afraid I might fall and no one would see me. So I obeyed. Elena kept turning pages. The entries became less frequent. 2 years ago, Marcus brought a guest, a young woman, very beautiful. Her name is Vera. He said she's a coworker who's having problems and needs a place to stay temporarily. She stays in the guest room. But why does Marcus tell the neighbors that I'm sick? I'm healthy. Elena's heart raced. Vera. So that was her name. She turned the page again, gripping the notebook tightly. 1.5 years ago, Vera brought a child, a little boy, very sweet. His name is Ben. Marcus said he's an orphan they're helping. But his eyes are exactly like Marcus's when he was a child. I'm not stupid. I'm the one who gave birth to him. Tears dripped onto the yellowed pages. Marcus got angry when I asked. He yelled at me. He said I was senile. He said I must not interfere. Since that day, my bedroom door has been locked from the outside. He said it's for my own good. He said there are too many germs outside. Vera and the child move freely through my house, while I'm locked in my room. Elena sobbed. She could feel Elena's fear and confusion bleeding through the words. She turned to the final pages. The handwriting became chaotic, broken, barely legible. My heart medication has run out. Marcus took it and replaced it with vitamins. He said they're better, but my chest feels so tight. I tried to tell Vera, but she only looked at me in fear. She's afraid of Marcus too. She's a prisoner in this house too. Marcus brought a lawyer. He forced me to sign a power of attorney over my assets. I refused. I threw the pen. He threatened to hurt Elena. He said Elena would suffer in Portland if I didn't obey. Elena covered her mouth to suppress a scream. Marcus had used her name, used her as a weapon against Elena. The final entry was written with strokes so weak they nearly vanished. He is no longer my Marcus. The devil has taken him. He locks me away. He brings another woman into my home. He lets me die slowly. Elena, if you ever read this, I'm sorry I couldn't be a good mother-in-law to you. Please, please punish him. Don't let him win. Elena, please. Those were Elena's last words. Elena clutched the diary to her chest. Her sobs finally broke free. She wasn't mourning the husband she'd lost. She was mourning Elena, her suffering, her loneliness, her cruel death. She was mourning herself for being deceived for so long. She cried for a few minutes. Then she stopped. She wiped her tears roughly. Grief was over. Now came justice. She remembered something. The small note she had found in Marcus's office back in Portland. The medicine has run out again. He needs it. Elena searched the drawer again. Beneath the diapers, she found them. Several more notes, written in a different hand. Slanted, modern, Vera's handwriting. Shopping lists. Ben's formula. Ben's diapers size M. Ben's fever medicine. Elena finally understood. That note hadn't been for Elena. It had been written by the other woman, for her child. Elena's trembling became uncontrollable. This wasn't just an affair. This was a crime. An act of cruelty beyond comprehension. Her husband, Marcus, the man who slept beside her every night, the man she had trusted. Elena collapsed. Her back slid down the doorframe until she was sitting on the cold hallway floor. She couldn't cry. She was too shocked. She could only stare into the dark room, into the core of her husband's rot. She didn't know how long she sat there. 10 minutes? An hour? Time had stopped. Her body shook violently, but her mind grew strangely clear. The numbing shock slowly receded, replaced by something else, something cold, heavy, unyielding, rage. This was no longer about a broken marriage. This was about a crime. This was about unforgivable cruelty. This was about Elena. With stiff movements, Elena stood up. Her legs were weak, but she forced herself upright. She would not faint. She would not run. She had opened this door, and she would walk through it to the end. She re-entered the prison-like room. The smell of medicine and stale air now felt like the smell of death. Elena paused on the front porch, letting her eyes adjust to the blinding sunlight. She took a deep breath. The clean, rural air felt violently different from the moral filth she had just uncovered inside that house. She had to move, fast, before the fragile calm holding her together finally shattered. Her first destination was Susan Miller's house. Elena walked quickly toward the hedge-lined path, her hands still gripping Helena's diary and the stack of photographs like lifelines. Susan must have been watching from her window, because the moment Elena appeared, the older woman stepped out onto her porch. Her face was etched with worry. "Elena, what happened? Oh my God, you're so pale." Elena didn't have time for pleasantries. She stopped at Susan's gate. "I need your help," she said. Her voice was flat, cold enough to make Susan flinch. "What is it, dear? What did you find?" Elena didn't answer. She lifted the diary instead. "May I come inside? I need to make a call." Susan took one look at Elena's eyes and nodded immediately. Of course, come in." She led Elena into her modest, cool living room. Elena sat on the edge of the couch, her body stiff as stone. "I was poisoned by his lies," she said quietly, staring straight ahead. "But Helena, she was murdered." Susan gasped. "Oh my God, murdered? How?" "She was locked in. Her medication was taken away. She was left to die. While my husband," she spat the word like venom, "lived here with another woman and their child." Susan's eyes widened in horror. "So, the woman's voice, the child I kept hearing, it was real?" "Yes." "Oh, Lord. Who is she?" Her name is Vera. Everything is written in Helena's diary. Susan sank into the chair across from her. Vera? Vera? I've heard that name before. Elena nodded. Yes. Sometimes when Marcus was on the phone in his car, I'd hear him say it. I thought it was a coworker from Portland. She shook her head. She wasn't a coworker. Susan covered her mouth. Elena inhaled sharply. I need to call a lawyer, the one who came to my house in Portland. I don't remember his number, but I remember the firm. Use my phone, quickly, Susan said, pointing to the landline on the side table. Elena pulled out her phone and searched for Reed and Holloway Legal Associates. She found it. Her heart pounded as she dialed from Susan's phone. Good afternoon, Reed and Holloway? A voice answered. I need to speak with Thomas Reed, immediately. This is an emergency. Tell him it's Elena, Helena's daughter-in-law. There was a pause. Please hold. Elena waited. Her foot tapped uncontrollably against the floor. Elena? Miss Elena? Thomas Reed's voice came on the line, startled. Mr. Reed, Elena said quickly, her voice once again controlled and cold. I'm not in Portland. I'm in Idaho, in Helena's house. A sharp inhale came from the other end. What? How? Marcus told us she was hospitalized, and you were out of state. He lied, Elena cut in. He lied about everything. She didn't slow down. I entered the house. I found proof. Helena didn't die naturally. My husband imprisoned her, took her medication, and let her die, while he lived here with his mistress and their child. Silence. Heavy, absolute silence. Elena could hear Thomas Reed exhale slowly. I suspected something, he finally said, his voice dark with restrained anger. Not this, but I had doubts. What do you mean? Elena asked. 2 months before Helena died, she called me in secret. She was terrified. She told me Marcus was forcing her to sign full power of attorney over all her assets. She refused. Elena's grip tightened around the phone. The diary was telling the truth. She wanted to change her will, Reed continued. She didn't want Marcus to receive a single dollar. She wanted everything to go to you. Elena's breath caught. To me? Yes, Reed said softly. She said you were the only one she trusted. She said Marcus had become a monster. Elena closed her eyes. I promised to help her. I was preparing legal action to remove Marcus from the property, but a week later, Marcus called and said his mother was gravely ill and unreachable. A month after that, she was dead. Reed's voice hardened. He came to my office with a signed power of attorney and the old will. I knew something was wrong, but I had no proof. I have proof, Elena said. I have Helena's diary. I have photographs. Good, Reed replied, suddenly sharp and decisive. Listen to me carefully. Do nothing. Do not contact the police yet. Marcus is manipulative. He'll twist the narrative. I'm coming there now with my team and the necessary warrants. It'll take about 4 to 5 hours. Elena nodded, even though he couldn't see her. Stay at Susan's house. Do not return to that place. Do not let Marcus or anyone know where you are. There's one more thing, Elena said. Yes? Elena looked at Susan. Susan nodded and gently took the phone. Mr. Reed, this is Susan, Helena's neighbor. Marcus never went anywhere. He has another house, big one, in the neighboring town, Meadow Ridge Village. He built it for that woman. Reed said nothing. When he tells his wife he's on business trips, he's there. When he tells the mistress he's going back to Portland, he goes to Elena. He's living 2 lives. A long pause. This is even better than I expected, Reed said finally, his voice ice cold. That means we can catch him red-handed. He didn't hesitate. Lock your doors. Don't go outside. Wait for me. We'll go to that house together. We'll drag him out of his den. We'll wait, Elena said. The call ended. Elena slowly set the receiver down. Susan stared at her with a mix of fear and awe. You're a strong woman, Elena, she whispered. Elena shook her head. I don't know. I just want justice for Helena. She sat there, clutching the diary to her chest. 5 hours. 5 hours before she would face the monster she once called her husband. Outside, the sun blazed mercilessly. indifferent to the dark reckoning unfolding beneath it. Marcus's perfect double life was about to collapse, and Elena would be the one to bring it down. 5 hours felt like an eternity. Elena sat motionless in Susan's living room. The glass of sweet tea Susan had made sat untouched, now cold. Her heartbeat was steady, painfully steady. Her mind was no longer chaotic. Shock and grief had crystallized into something sharp and unyielding in her chest. She didn't cry anymore. She waited. Helena's diary lay on her lap. During those 5 hours, Elena read it again and again, not to find new information, but to harden herself. She absorbed every word of suffering, every suppressed plea, every broken hope. She memorized Helena's pain, forging it into both shield and weapon. Whenever doubt or fear tried to creep in, she turned back to the final entry. Elena, please help me. Susan hovered anxiously, pacing between the kitchen and the living room, peeking through the curtains, as if expecting Marcus to appear at any moment. "Eat something, dear," she said gently. "I made food." "No, thank you," Elena replied. Her voice sounded unfamiliar, lower, steadier, forged by resolve. "I'm not hungry." At exactly 4 p.m., 5 hours and 10 minutes later, the sound of car engines slowing down reached the house. Not one, at least two. Susan jolted upright. That must be them." Elena stood. Her legs didn't tremble anymore. She gripped Helena's diary tightly against her chest. The knock on Susan's door came firm and deliberate. Susan opened it. Thomas Reed stood there. His face was hard, flushed with restrained anger after the long drive. His suit jacket was gone, leaving a crisp white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. Behind him stood two broad-shouldered men in plain tactical shirts. They were clearly not lawyers. "Elena," Thomas said, quietly but urgently. "We're here. We've coordinated with local law enforcement." He gestured to the two men. "They're officers." Elena nodded once. "What's the plan?" "We're going to Meadow Ridge Village, now. We'll bring him in." He hesitated. "Elena, I strongly suggest you stay here." "No," Elena cut in. Her voice was steady, absolute. "I'm coming." Thomas steadied her face. There was no hysteria, no fragility, only steel. "She needs to see me," Elena continued. "She needs to know I'm the one who uncovered everything." Thomas exhaled slowly, then nodded. "All right, stay behind us." He turned to Susan. "You're a key witness. You know the address?" Susan straightened, her voice shaking with nerves and determination. "I do. I know it very well." The drive to Meadow Ridge Village took only 20 minutes. Elena rode in the car with Thomas and Susan. The officers followed behind. No one spoke. Elena stared out the window. The rolling green fields were beautiful. Too beautiful. In this hidden pocket of rural Idaho, her husband had built hell for his own mother. "There," Susan said softly. "That house." It stood slightly apart from the others, and it was nothing like Helena's home. Helena's house hid its wealth behind quiet walls. This one showed it off. A modern minimalist structure, gray concrete, sharp orange accents, low fence, a small lawn scattered with children's toys. A small tricycle lay tipped over in the grass. The car stopped a few yards from the gate, and there he was, Marcus, dressed in a casual polo and shorts, looking relaxed, younger, happier. He was laughing as he pushed a small boy on a backyard swing. The child's laughter rang out, high and carefree. On the porch sat a beautiful young woman, Vera. She smiled, sipping an iced drink. A perfect family scene. A scene that tore Elena's heart open. "Oh my God," Susan whispered, covering her mouth. Elena didn't wait. She opened the car door and stepped out. "Elena, wait!" Thomas called. She didn't. She walked straight toward the open gate. Marcus heard the crunch of gravel. He turned, still smiling. Then he saw her. The smile froze, then shattered. The swing flew backward, nearly striking the child. Marcus's eyes went wide with terror. His face drained of color, paler than the day Thomas first appeared in their Portland home. "Elena," he whispered. On the porch, Vera stood abruptly. "Marcus, who is that?" Her voice was soft, confused. Elena stopped in front of him, separated only by the slowly swaying swing. The boy stared at her with wide eyes, eyes that looked exactly like Marcus's. "You said," Elena spoke calmly, her voice slicing through the afternoon air, "you said you were on a business trip." Marcus stared at her like he was seeing a ghost. "Elena, what are you doing here? This isn't what it looks like. I can explain." "Really?" Elena laughed softly. A dry laugh, empty. "Which lie would you like to explain first? The 7-year renovation? The fake receipts you kept in your desk? Or your terminally ill wife?" Vera stiffened. "What is she talking about?" she demanded, stepping forward. "Who are you? You told me his wife was very sick, in Portland." "And unreachable," Elena finished, for her. Her gaze locked onto Vera. "I'm Elena, his legal wife." All color drained from Vera's face. She turned to Marcus. "Marcus, she's lying, right? You told me your wife was dead." Marcus panicked, caught between two collapsing lies. "Vera, stop. Elena, let's talk inside. Don't make a scene." He reached for Elena's arm. She jerked away as if burned. "Don't touch me." Her voice rose for the first time, raw with fury and disgust. Thomas and the 2 officers stepped in behind her. Marcus saw them. Instinct screamed at him to retreat. Who are these people?" "This is a family matter." "A family matter." Elena stepped closer. "Is locking your mother in a bedroom until she dies a family matter? Taking her heart medication and letting her beg for it, is that a family matter?" "What are you talking about?" Marcus barked, trying to intimidate her. It didn't work. Elena raised Helena's diary. "Care to explain this?" With all the ounces of strength she had, she threw it. The diary slammed into Marcus's chest and fell open at his feet. "Your mother sends her regards from the grave." That was the end of the performance. "Take him," Thomas said calmly. The officers moved fast. They seized Marcus's arms. "Let go of me! You have no right!" Marcus shouted, thrashing. The panic of a coward caught in the act. "Mr. Marcus Reed, I am Thomas Reed, legal counsel for the late Helena Reed. You are being detained for questioning on charges of document forgery, fraud, and criminal neglect resulting in loss of life." Vera screamed and collapsed on the grass, sobbing. "Loss of life? Oh God, Marcus, what did you do?" "I didn't do anything," Marcus screamed. His eyes snapped to Elena, wild with hatred. "This is your fault. You destroyed my life." Elena looked at him. The ice in her chest had turned to fire. "No," she said calmly. "You destroyed your own life. You destroyed your mother's life, and you will pay for it." As Marcus was forced into the police car, he never stopped staring at her. Not with remorse, with hate. Elena held his gaze, unflinching, until the door slammed shut. The engine roared. Dust rose as the car drove away. Karma had begun. Silence settled over the house, broken only by Vera's hysterical sobs and the frightened crying of the little boy, clutching at her. Elena stood motionless, the adrenaline drained, leaving behind crushing exhaustion. But it wasn't over. "Elena, are you all right?" Thomas asked gently. She nodded. She walked towards Vera, who sat on the grass holding the little boy tightly. Elena crouched in front of her. Vera looked up. ears swollen, filled with fear, anger, and confusion. "What did he tell you?" Elena asked softly, not out of pity, out of necessity. Vera sobbed. "He said his name was Indrawan, that he was a successful businessman from Jakarta, a widower, that his wife died in an accident." Elena listened. "We met at a seminar. He said Helena was his mother, sentile, hateful towards me. That's why she needed special care." Vera's voice cracked. "He said she refused to take her medication, so he kept it for her." Reality hit her. She wasn't just a mistress. She was a tool, living in luxury while an old woman died slowly in the next room. "He lied to all of us," Elena said quietly. "To me, to his mother, and to you." She met Vera's eyes. "Now, you have a choice. Keep living inside his lies, or help me get justice for Helena." Tears streamed down Vera's face. What do I have to do?" "Tell the truth," Thomas said firmly. "Become a witness. Tell us everything you know. It's the only way to reduce your liability and make him pay."
The case shook the entire rural community. The scandal dominated the local newspapers around Boise, Idaho. Marcus had nowhere left to run. The evidence Elena and Thomas Reed of Reed and Holloway Legal Associates had gathered was overwhelming. Helena's diary became the core piece of evidence, a chilling record of coercion, threats, and manipulation, including how Marcus had used Elena's name to force his mother into signing over power of attorney. Vera's handwritten notes and the forged renovation receipts exposed a systematic pattern of financial fraud. Susan's testimony confirmed that Helena had been deliberately isolated. But the most devastating blow came from Vera herself. In court, tears streaming down her face, Vera testified that Marcus frequently dismissed Helena's complaints of chest pain. "Old people are like that," Marcus had once said coldly. "They just want attention. Leave it. She'll quiet down." Vera testified how Marcus had taken Helena's heart medication and replaced it with vitamins, claiming the real medicine was too harsh. Marcus tried everything. He hired an expensive defense attorney, attempted quiet bribes, even staged tearful performances in court, claiming he had loved his mother deeply. But when the final entry of Helena's diary was read aloud in the courtroom, every last illusion collapsed. The judge raised the gavel. Marcus was found guilty, beyond reasonable doubt, of document forgery, asset embezzlement, and most gravely, willful neglect of a dependent adult resulting directly in death. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison. In a single day, he lost everything: his reputation, his wealth, and his freedom. That same day, Elena officially divorced Marcus. She did not ask for spousal assets. She refused to take a single dollar of his tainted money. Through precise legal maneuvering, Thomas Reed successfully annulled the coerced power of attorney and the falsified will. All of Helena's assets, including the house in Meadow Ridge Village, were secured and in accordance with Helena's final wishes, legally transferred to Elena. As for Vera, because she cooperated fully as a key witness, she received leniency. The house in the neighboring village, built with stolen funds, was seized by the state. But in one final act that closed the chapter, Elena asked Thomas to ensure that Vera and her innocent son were provided safe, dignified housing. She didn't do it for Vera. She did it for herself. To purge the last traces of Marcus's poison from her life. 1 year later, Meadow Ridge Village felt brighter. The house at the end of the lane looked completely different. The tall fence that once resembled a prison had been replaced with a low, neatly trimmed hedge. The gate now stood open, always. Elena, wearing a soft pastel long dress, watered the blooming jasmine in the garden. The garden was fuller now, lush, fragrant. She no longer lived in Portland. She had found peace here. Inside the house, the smell of medicine and decay was long gone. The once sterile living room now held warm rugs and cheerful cushions. All photos of Marcus had been burned. The walls were adorned instead with calming calligraphy. And the room where Helena had been imprisoned, its door was now always open. The hospital bed was gone. The walls, once covered with fake family photos, had been repainted a soft ivory. Large windows stood wide open, letting in fresh air and the sound of children laughing. The room had transformed completely. Colorful bookshelves, small reading tables, floor cushions. Children from the village gathered there, absorbed in books. Above the doorway hung a simple yet elegant wooden plaque, beautifully carved. Helena's Little Library. Knowledge is light. Susan arrived from next door, carrying a tray with 2 cups of warm, sweet tea and a plate of fried bananas. "It's getting late, Elena," she said with a smile. "You'll catch a chill." Elena smiled back. A real smile. One that came from deep within. "Just a little longer, Susan. The air feels wonderful." Elena looked at the plaque once more. She had succeeded. She hadn't only punished Marcus. She hadn't only secured justice for Helena. She had redeemed the suffering inside that house, turning a prison into a place of learning. She had transformed darkness into light. She was free, and at last, she felt peace.